All right. Well, now that we've officially opened the gates, we will give it like a quick 5 second to make sure that folks who are in the waiting room make it to the main stage. And so we'll give them the chance to trickle in. But while we're waiting, greetings to everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to join us for this year's ASPB Meet the President-elect Candidates webinar. This is a live event, and this is an opportunity for our community to be able to ask questions, and get to learn more about this year's candidate who will be in the running to lead ASPB into the future. Note that by getting involved in the ASPB and the voting process, you're able to help shape the future of the society and the plant science community as a whole. And so we really appreciate you being here with us. And to kick things off, I would like to invite ASPB's nomination committee chair and our current president-elect, Kent Chapman, who will briefly talk about the nomination process, introduce the candidates, and our event moderator. And so with that, over to you, Kent.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. And thank you all for being here with us today. As Jason mentioned, I'm Kent Chapman. My day job, I'm professor, Department of Biological Sciences at the University of North Texas. But I'm here because I'm currently serving the society as its president-elect. And one of the responsibilities as president-elect is to chair the nominations committee and to identify candidates to stand for election for ASPB leadership positions. And this year we have two positions open for election. One is for the at-large elected representative to the ASPB Board of Directors. And the second one is the subject today, candidates for ASPB president-elect. The nominations process has been modified in recent years to help expand and enhance community engagement. I described this process in a recent blog post, link of which is on the slide here. Invite you to take a look at that briefly. I'd like you to know that nominations for both of the open positions came from the membership at large. Nominations were open at the end of January and closed at the end of February. Nominations were collated by ASPB staff, and then the nominations committee met to discuss the positions. The nominations committee includes myself as chair, Hong Ma, current president, as well as three additional members, one elected from the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, one elected from the Early Career Plant Scientists section, and one elected from ASPB Council. It was my responsibility to take the list from the recommended list from the nominations committee and call candidates, explain the responsibilities, and ask if they were willing to stand for election and serve if elected. I identified two nominees for each position. And although we're not going to talk about the other one today, I just want to mention the elected members to the board of directors. Candidates for that position are Patricia Leone, who's professor at plant molecular biology at the Institute of Biotechnology at the National University of Mexico. And the second candidate is Paul Versluis, who's research fellow in the Institute of Plant and Microbial Biology at Academia Sinica in Taiwan. You can read more about those two candidates in the link on the page here and the election information you receive, more biographical information. But today we're here to talk about the two candidates for president-elect. That would be first, Tessa Birch-Smith, associate member and principal investigator at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center in St. Louis. Thank you for being here with us, Tessa. The second candidate, Stelma Madzima, who is an 1855 professor in the Department of Plant Biology at Michigan State University. Thank you, Thelma, for agreeing to stand for election. I'm not going to steal their thunder because I'm sure they'll have things to describe about themselves, but I will say that both of our candidates have served ASPB admirably in the past in several different roles and been recognized by ASPB for their service and dedication to the plant science community. So I'm delighted to have both of them here to describe their candidacy and field questions. As far as to help with our discussion, our moderator today is Dr. Sonal Sachdev. Sonal is a postdoctoral research associate in Dr. Carol Huang's lab at New York University. She's also an ASPB ambassador and is committed to strengthening scientific networks and contributing meaningfully to the growth and engagement of the plant science community. And we're glad that Sonal has agreed to this important role. So let me turn it over first back to Jason for a few technical details, who then will open up the session. Jason? You're muted.
All right. Well, thank you, Kent, and sorry about that. Welcome to Tessa, Thelma, and Sonal. As Kent mentioned to you all, just a quick housekeeping items that I want to bring up. So if you want to make sure that we have a great experience together and you all are able to get all your questions kind of answered and asked of our candidates. And so with that, know that there is a Q&A box. So all the questions that you have for our candidate, feel free to just type them in. Our moderator will be using them to kind of fill those questions to our candidates. There is an upvote option for all the questions. So if you see a question that you're interested in hearing more about, you can quickly click the thumbs up. It will help our moderator be able to prioritize all the questions. We want to make sure that all the questions that are important to our audience today are able to be asked of our candidate. And if you have any other technical questions or any of those, feel free to email me directly at jpadilla@aspb.org. And so with that, I am now going to turn it over to Sonal, who will be moderating today's event. So with that, thank you, Sonal. Take it away.
Thank you, Kent, and thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Jason has already mentioned, please use the Q&A box, use the upvote feature so that we know what you'd like our candidates to prioritize. And before we begin the question answer round, I would invite our candidates to each share a brief opening statement about themselves. So I'd first like to invite Tessa Birch-Smith. Over to you, Tessa.
Thank you, Sonal, and good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for taking the time to participate in this webinar. So I am Tessa Birch-Smith, as I've been introduced before. I am currently an associate member and principal investigator at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center in St. Louis, Missouri. That's right in the Midwest of the United States of America. And one important thing to know about St. Louis is that 50% of US agriculture is located within a 500-mile radius of St. Louis, which means that we think about plants all the time. We see them, big agricultural state. And I have been a member of ASPB, an active member for about 10 years now. As far as most members go, this is a fairly short time span. I only became actively involved in ASPB as an assistant professor while I was at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. However, in the last few years, I've been actively engaged in ASPB, primarily through the Science Policy Council, which I chaired for several years. I also served as a member of the council as chair of the Science Policy Committee. And I also served on the board of directors for 2 terms. So I'm very familiar with the inner workings of ASPB. And at this time in particular, I am actually excited for the opportunity to serve as president-elect as part of the membership team. Because as they say, every challenge is an opportunity. And I think there are great opportunities for ASPB to continue its good work and extend its reach as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa, for the opening statement. And our next final president-elect candidate, Thelma Medzima. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Sonal. So I would like to begin by thanking all of you for joining, and also to those that nominated me for this position. I'm extremely honored and humbled to be considered for this very important role of president-elect, and then ultimately the president of the American Society of Plant Biologists. As Kent mentioned earlier, I am Thelma Medzima. I'm currently an associate professor in the Department of Plant Biology at Michigan State University. And my academic journey has been quite unique, maybe not similar to many past presidents. And so I immigrated to the United States from the Southern African country of Zimbabwe as an undergraduate student, and attended Fort Valley State University, which is a historically Black college and university. And so after I graduated from my undergrad, I attended grad school at the University of Florida and ultimately did a postdoc at Florida State University. And both those institutions were all one institutions. And my first faculty position was at the University of Washington at the Bothell campus, which is a primarily undergraduate institution. And so taking everything together, experiencing different learning and research environments at different stages of my career comes with a lot of life lessons. And I often reflect about the feeling of belonging in the communities that we are part of. And so the gravity of this leadership role is huge, and even more so in this climate. I can imagine, where Tess and I are both really reflecting on that heaviness. And I do not take my position to accept this nomination lightly. And as we navigate all the challenges that we're all dealing with, and some that will come, I believe that it is that our society must affirm our commitments to excellence in science, scientific relevance, our commitments to fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also being engaged public citizens and engaging with the public. So in my decision to run for this role at this time, I'm reminded by the popular phrase that says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And so my vision for ASPB is for us to become a more globally inclusive and accessible plant science society that represents all its members. And I believe that our future exists in our early career members and members from the diverse groups and backgrounds, and that it is our role as leaders to empower these members. And we can do this by removing and reducing barriers, which is a priority of mine. And so for most of my academic career since leaving an HBCU, the feeling of not belonging often resonates with me, even at institutions that I'm part of and in societies for which I'm a member and pay my dues. And so I think about how can we change that? And so I'm committed to creating an ASPB for all of its members in a way that we can amplify the voices of the most marginalized within our community. And I'm excited to do that during the term of service.
Thank you, Thelma. Thank you both of you for your introductory statements. Our audience are very pleased to hear from you. So without further ado, we'll begin our question answer session. And I would like Tessa to answer our question first. So the question is, do you think ASPB is doing enough to nurture diversity among membership and to ensure diverse leadership? If not, what should or could be done more?
So as a 100-year-old institution, ASPB is the product of its past. In the past, the structure of ASPB, the membership of ASPB came out of the conditions of the time, and this gives us the ASPB that we have today. In recent years, probably starting in 2020, like most institutions in the US, ASPB had to reckon with itself and look at its the diversity, the membership. Was it meeting the needs of a diverse membership across the US and across the world? ASPB has now become an international organization. 40% of our members are international. So ASPB has made great strides in diversifying, in trying to diversify its membership and leadership. I think today's webinar is a testimony to that. You have two women from underrepresented groups as candidates to be the next president-elect. But I think there is more that can be done. And part of it has to go back, I think, to nurturing young scientists, to giving young scientists a place where they can feel comfortable. Like ASPB is my home. Thelma used the word belonging. I want to echo that sentiment. I think ASPB has to provide an environment that nurtures young scientists or folks interested in plant science from a diversity of backgrounds. We've centered our membership on universities and academic institutions. I think we need to broaden out. And going along with diversifying our membership, we have to diversify what we mean by plant science. It can't simply be the molecular and cell biology. We started as the Association of Plant Physiologists, but we need to consider broadening our membership so we have a diversity of thought, not just a diversity of persons. We also need to think about different careers, trajectories beyond just the academic rules. What about more membership from folks in industry who have a different perspective on how plant science should be done and how it impacts? So I think there is a lot of room for ASPB to reach out and expand, increase its diversity, and provide an inclusive support where folks can grow and actually contribute to plant science and the broader community. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Tessa. And Thelma, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, just as Tessa mentioned, ASPB has made strides into increasing its diversity, and we noticed a lot of these, and I'm sure all of us noticed a lot of these as a response to societal events that happened around 2020. But if we look back again, there are some times when ASPB put other statements reaffirming their commitments to diversity, and this was right after another tragic event in society. And so I think as a society, we need to do a better job of actually being intentional about our inclusion efforts and not just being part of a reaction to society events, because that's not really sustainable. And so I have noticed, and I think we've all noticed, that we are now having better inclusion and representation of our members on committees, on the boards, and even on, like, for example, on editorial boards, all of which are activities that are necessary for our careers and our jobs that many of us were being excluded from prior to this. And so it is exciting to actually see more diverse panels of speakers at the meeting. And so with all of that progress, I still feel like there's room for improvement. And so, for example, when we're thinking about leadership, it is important that for elected and appointed positions that we continue to make sure that we have diverse candidate nominees or selections, and also awards and the various activities of ASPB. And task the committees that, if the member selected or nominated nominees are not diverse, it is the role of the committee to actually rectify that. And I think we can also do a better job in tracking diversity throughout our leadership roles, and we can do this annually, right? And this will really tell us whether or not we are meeting the objectives, right? So a sense of transparency and accountability would be necessary. And in terms of our membership, we need to move from the just recruitment, right? Offering travel grants is not enough, and we need to focus more on retention efforts, right? How do we keep our diverse members, and again, diversity, as Tessa mentioned, is a broad statement here. How do we keep our diverse members in our the plant biology community in a way that they can thrive and also themselves make it to leadership roles? And so removing barriers of access for those that are marginalized or underrepresented would also help improve our diversity efforts. Thank you.
Great suggestion, Thelma. And so moving on to our next question, and it's from our Q&A section, which people have upvoted for. And they say hello to you, Thelma and Tessa. While they are confident that ASPB would be in excellent hands with either of you, they are curious what you see as your first priority for the ASPB community, first role, first priority while you are the president, and how do you plan to approach it, like a quick pathway in your mind, if any? So for this one, could Thelma please answer us first?
All right, thank you to whoever asked this question. A really great question about what the first priority would be. I kind of had more than one, but I think I'll prioritize it. I actually think for now, I would say the first priority would be reinforcing our relevance in society, communicating with the public engagement. This is true to all scientific institutions and societies right now. But then also we have our own aspects that we need to work on as plant biologists. But, public confidence, whatever we had is diminishing. And there's many things that we can go down a rabbit hole about why that's happening. But just becoming relevant in society and articulating the importance of both fundamental and translational research and how that benefits the general public, farmers, society in general is really important. And I think if we can reinforce that relevance, then taxpayers would be more comfortable with their money being used to support the works that we do.
Tessa, could we have your opinion?
Sure. Again, thank you. Great question, and thank you for the vote of confidence in Thelma and myself. So, like Thelma, I have a lot of priorities that I'm thinking of, but one thing I would like to make a priority is actually expanding ASPB's role in mentorship of young scientists. In the last few months, I've spent a lot of time in conversations with junior scientists, and because of the environment we're facing as scientists, a lot of them feel very uncertain about their future, about opportunities, about the careers that they have chosen. And I think ASPB is uniquely positioned to provide support for these young scientists, to provide them a place where they can feel reassured of their worth as scientists, their contribution to society, and to encourage them that, this too shall pass, that there are people who are working diligently to support science, to engage with our elected leaders, to present them with the value of what it is we do as scientists. And so for me, for ASPB, I think reaching out to younger scientists or for those who are facing job uncertainty is a role that this society can fulfill. And in the short term, I think this should be a priority for ASPB.
Okay, nice to hear about that. So another question, and this time, Tessa, we can hear you first. What do you think is the biggest challenge that ASPB and plant science and plant biology community as a whole is going to face over the next 10 years? And as a president, currently, what could you do or what measures could you take so that this society stays poised while facing these challenges for the community that it serves?
That's a big loaded question. So let me take a stab
Yeah.
at it. Thank you to
Yeah.
whoever asked it. So I think the challenge facing ASPB is one facing all scientific organizations and institutions now, right? It's the distrust in science that is leading to outcomes like the removal or the loss of funding for ASPB. And I think in 10 years, like Thelma alluded to, if we cannot regain the trust of society, then we will face an existential threat. This manifests in a number of ways. For example, one challenge is to the current ASPB model for publishing its journals. Our two flagship journals, Plant Cell and Plant Physiology, are still based on subscription models. We're moving away from that. But that is represents a loss of revenue that we've been dependent on for many years. So I think diversifying ASPB's business model to make sure that it's a financially sound organization is a challenge, but that is also rooted in the funding situation that we find ourselves in, which again goes back to the seeming loss of faith in scientists among the general public. So it's a big problem that ASPB faces. And I think we secure our members, we support them, and we gear up ourselves to do the work of engaging beyond the silo of ASPB, engaging with other scientists, forming those coalitions, and then moving forward so that we can actually get buy-in from all the stakeholder groups and the general public at large.
Yeah, that's nice. And that's what you even mentioned earlier, is to involve the industry more into our community so that there is some funding from that as well to support us. And so, Thelma, we'd like to hear your view on this.
Thank you. So, just to piggyback off what the statement that Tessa raised about, public mistrust kind of also ties into my response to the previous question, right? So that would be one of our main challenges. And that just, also leans into another major challenge, which is the funding, right? Although maybe ASPB might not be directly dependent or heavily dependent on federal funding, the members are, right? And the livelihood of the members and our ability to continue to do our important work and train the next generation of scientists is also heavily dependent on federal funding, which we've all noticed has been reduced in capacity and also kind of politicized, unfortunately. And so navigating these unpredictable and shifting funding climates would also be a major challenge for us. And as everybody is stressed and busy and, trying to just survive in this climate, we might also then have a loss in workforce diversity, right? In the diversity of the early career researchers and scientists that are coming through the pipeline, because opportunities are being taken away. And so we actually have to make an additional effort in addition to what we're trying to already do, which seems like an uphill battle. But we have to just put in additional effort to just make sure that we're not losing the work that we have done in recent years.
Yeah. You get it. In continuation with this question, we have some more questions that might be very linked, but then they would, like, our community wants to know, are there like some specific measures that you could take like immediately, like with the funding situation currently we are in, which might be continued for a while maybe? So under those circumstances, and because this nomination is for this year, so could we do something to reform it, like that immediate course of action that you could apply when you are in power? So your opinion, Thelma?
Yeah. So I think that question is great. And one of the things I liked is about the immediateness, right? What can we do now? And And so I think one of the things that I've been thinking about, even as I'm considering this position, is, the importance of removing barriers and not functioning as a silo. And power in numbers is going to be very important. And so the plant science community, not just ASPB, needs to band together. And I think this is ongoing already. We've been seeing statements from our current leadership. We need to just band together in our communication with, with Congress members, our local politicians, have joint statements to continuously highlight the importance of the work that we do. I mean, continuously advocate. And so this is where I'm mentioning that ASPB might not be dependent heavily on federal funding, but the members are. So we need to fight for our members, and we're going to have to do this as a team with other societies. And so whether or not ASPB takes a leadership role or is also just a partner, and these partnerships should also broaden out or diversify, as Tessa alluded to include industry partners and people in other different professions as well.
Yes, definitely. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, that's our.
Yeah, I agree with Thelma on this response. As former chair of the SPC, I know firsthand the kind of work that goes into lobbying with Congress. ASPB has been very proactive in the past of meeting with individual Congress members. The SPC members of the Science Policy Committee are very carefully chosen so that they represent crucial congressional districts who have roles in budget making. This work is ongoing. It's taken on even more urgency, as we can all imagine. But as members of ASPB, we too have a role to play. So what ASPB can do immediately is to try to activate more of the existing membership to become advocates for their own science and for ASPB. What we need is our membership as individuals to reach out to their congressional representatives, to go to their town halls and ask questions of their representatives, to reinforce the importance of plant science. This is something, when folks hear from one ASPB, that is just a society. It's an interest, a special interest group, you might say in lobbying lingo. But when a member of Congress goes to their district and there are 3 scientists, people with faces and families and stories who are reaching out to them to tell them about the impact of the cuts on their livelihood. As scientists, that's a different impact and a different story. So I think one thing ASPB could do is, like Thelma said, band together with other societies, but we also have to empower our members to do that outreach and that advocacy on their own. ASPB has some phenomenal web resources. There are templates for letters that we can write. There's language that we can use, but we need to activate our members to light that fire in them so that they feel empowered that this is something that I can do to help myself, my society, and my science. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, very impactful way of answering to this question. And again, we will be going in and about from what we just spoke about. As I guess you mentioned, Tessa, that ASPB is like over-dependent on journal-derived income stream. So what other ways do you think the society should fund its activities, and how members could help? But then the funding crisis is already at our doorstep. So how to get out of this vicious loop?
That's actually a great question, and it's also a hard question. So as a scientific society, we are a non-profit organization. We are constrained by activities that we can engage in. I want to say the money for ASPB, the most of the money goes for 2 things. It's one, to fund members, to fund member-related activities, and to keep the society going. That's what we spend our money on mainly. What can we do to diversify or to change our funding model is a very important question. There were activities that we engaged in the past like we no longer do. For example, ASPB had a meeting services arm, I should say, where we would help other scientific societies organize their own meetings, and we would be paid for these services. But that has been disbanded for very good reasons, but it's something that we could re-examine, for instance. There's always the talk about going to donors to look for private donors who are interested in supporting science. But that is something that where we would need to be very deliberate to establish long-term support. What we need is a sustainable long-term model of funding so that we don't jump from crisis to crisis. And so I think extending our membership, broadening the industry, providing services that diverse members can use is one way to attract new partners for ASPB who can support the work of the society in giving our members value for their membership dollars.
Yeah, definitely. We could think about that as a community. Thelma.
All right, that's so many great points were raised in that, and not to repeat, but I think to add on to ways that we can diversify our funding and also, source of revenue in a sustainable manner, as Tessa mentioned, is what's critical, right? And so one additional thing I was been thinking about is, we can create different courses and certificates, right? And to offer certificates and short courses or workshops on emerging topics, right? Like gene editing, AI and phenotyping, things that are relevant to the ongoing research of our community, right? And in which people are willing to and happy to pay a fee, for formal training in a specific area. And also opportunities for, training and workshop opportunities for professional development. And so Plante does such a great job with the platform that they have, which is a free platform. But some of those activities can actually be used as a sort of revenue by actually digging deeper, more than like a 1 hour activity or something like that, right? So a course or workshop that might happen right around the time that we have the meeting or other times. And then we can also think about having members supported donations or campaigns. And I know that was happening recently as well. But also give people the option to choose what type of activities they want to donate to, right? And so some people will want to donate specifically to grad students and postdocs, and some people might want to donate to awards. And so allowing people to donate to the activities that they deem important might also be a good way to collect revenue.
Amazing suggestions by both of you. And again, in continuation to that, some of the attendees are facing travel restrictions now, and even with some low funding situations. So what is your take on being more open or including more online-based exchange of ideas or courses? How could we how could you incorporate this into our system? Like more so, like we had these when in the pandemic era, but then due to God's grace, we could like shift back to not being too much involved in online activities. Like even the cost of covering the event and everything is not very easy all the time. But when people are again not in the right frame to travel, so do you have any suggestions to keep up that task, or something more that we could add to as a community?
Right. I think it's for me first. Yeah. So as Tessa mentioned earlier, right, I don't remember verbatim, but like, out of crisis also an opportunity, for improvement. And while none of us ever want to repeat or go through the pandemic times again, we learned so much, during that time. And to some extent, we feel like we're going through the same thing again, right? But one thing we learned from the pandemic times was the importance of, or the ability for us to of access through virtual platforms. And I, even without travel restrictions, I still feel like having virtual components is very, very important for access, because travel restrictions might be visa related, but there's also travel restrictions based on funding or financial restrictions as well. And so if we really want to engage members across the globe, particularly those from low income areas, we do need some virtual components to continue to engage. And those can be viewed live, but also should also be accessible after, as just like we're experiencing today, there are people who are in different time zones who have to watch this recording at different time.
I don't have anything to add to that response. I mean, using the online format is almost a no-brainer. Yes, we have to do more of it, not only for those facing travel restrictions, but for those who are facing economic hardship where travel is just simply not an option. So I think that goes without saying. But let me just highlight one more thing that ASPB is doing behind the scenes, which is, again, the advocacy to try to reverse the situation, to limit the impact of these bans, to prevent the limits on having foreign graduate students enrolled. All of this is advocacy work that's being done behind the scenes. So that's another long-term approach to sort of stabilize the situation that ASPB is undertaking and will probably have to redouble its efforts in. But certainly using online formats, making smart programs that people can easily pull up on their cell phone, making tools available. Again, we have a fantastic library of tools from our education committee from over the years, from Plenty. Can we make these available, format them so that they're accessible on cell phones? Because not everybody can sit in a comfortable office with a wide screen to see everything. So we can certainly leverage technology to increase the support we provide to our members.
Yeah, great suggestion. And from that, we already have one question on a broader perspective that was asked is like, what do you see as these roles of scientific societies in the digital era? As we know that more and more younger students are climbing up the ladder, they are coming into, and they are from a slightly different exposure to digital era. So how would you think that the society has to modify and be together with the changing environment of the digital era? Any suggestion on that, Tessa?
Yes, so I think the digital era presents challenges, but then these are opportunities. So for ASPB, this is an opportunity that we can use to actually engage with our wider membership. It's just the question we were discussing, right? Reaching folks in countries where travel is not possible or it's difficult. But the other thing about being involved in the digital era is that ASPB as an organization has to change as well, right? The digital era demands that we be flexible, we change rapidly, we are able to respond to situations, but we're also able to anticipate situations that arise. So one thing I think ASPB has to, as an organization, perhaps evolve in how some of its inner processes work. For example, a committee may meet once a month, but something happens the day after a committee meets. We can't wait the intervening, 27 days to do nothing for the next committee meeting. So we have to, as an organization, become more nimble, quicker to respond. And the digital universe provides us with that opportunity. We've taken advantage of things like Twitter, now X. We use these spaces, but we have to ensure that we use them more effectively. There is more that can be done. We put a lot of emphasis on the ASPB brand, when sometimes what our members want is some action and guidance with less regard for our brand. So to be in the digital space, yes, it's an opportunity for us, but then we are challenged to change our mindset on how we handle certain situations and respond to certain challenges. So it's a huge space available. I think ASPB has done a great job starting, again, with the Plante website, our own blogs. The information and the resources are great. We could also leverage things like our job boards a lot more, make them a lot more prominent to highlight opportunities for early career scientists. So I think all of these, the digital space is a place where we can grow and thrive and actually use it to improve as a society.
Yes, and I I love Tessa's response to that, and so many great points that she raised. And so I want to just reemphasize something she said. We have to embrace the digital age, and if we are resistant to that, it'll be detrimental to the society, right? We think about, if we really reflect on our engagements, we still have to work really hard in increasing actual membership. But if you look at the people who attend Plante events, follow ASPB on social media, shows you where the people are and how they want to receive their information, right? And so we have to change with the times. And, as Tessa mentioned earlier, we're a product of our past, but we actually now need to switch so that the next 100 years we are adapting to the type of ways that the next generation of scientists is going to be operating, right? Because we now have a generation of scientists who all they know is the digital age. And so we have to adapt with that and not be resistant to change.
Yeah, great answer. As a small reference, I am from India. I just joined here in New York this January. So I have been very active on the SpaceX for the last 2-3 years. And I would particularly say ASPB as a whole, even the different sections of ASPB is doing a great job, but who doesn't like more engagement? So yeah, thank you very much for your suggestions. So 2 power-packed questions, which I'll be merging. We want 2 points of each of the things. What is ASPB doing that it shouldn't do? And what is ASPB not doing that it should do? Immediate effect. 2 points in each category. Could we do that? Like the audience wants to hear. Thelma, would you go first this time?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so 2 things that we're doing that we need to continue to do, and things that we should not be doing, right? So I feel like in terms of not doing, I feel like there's a lot of resistance to change, and many of us have heard, oh, change takes time, but it doesn't really have to. And change takes time if something is not a priority. And so I feel like we need to be more adaptive to the rapidly evolving social, scientific society as well. And I think another thing that we need to do is actually be more transparent with the society, with the members. I believe the struggle with membership is that a lot of people who were members or still members don't feel heard, right? And so this kind of ties into what we should be doing, what we're not doing. I feel like we should increase our platforms in which members can actually engage with leadership, and where we don't have to wait until the annual business meeting, at the meeting to have those type of events. I think the other part would be what it isn't doing. I feel like we need to recognize the great achievements that are being done by early career scientists and those that are in positions that are often forgotten, like postdocs, right? And most of our awards that we give at ASPB are to more senior rank members, which is great because they have a lifetime of achievements, right? But also realizing that there were so many people who didn't have access to SPB or who are starting off their careers, who are actually doing amazing things for their career stages. And so we can do things like establishing awards that people like postdocs are eligible for, right? Because postdocs are engaged, they're serving on committees, but they're doing free labor without any other benefits that are happening. And then the other thing that we discussed earlier was just access, right? Making ASPB more accessible to members outside of the US globally, but also really focusing on those from low-income countries, right? If we really reflect on the percentage of members that are coming from, that are not in the US, are those also coming from countries that are at equal economic rank as the United States? We'll probably find that out too. And so we really need to engage more with the low-income countries.
Yeah, it's about 40% of our current membership is from outside of the US, just for information. Yeah. So yeah, great answer. Could we have your opinion, Tessa? 2 hot takes.
Oh boy. So yeah, great points, Thelma. So I agree that what ASPB should not be doing is becoming a fossilized organization. We have 100 years under our belt. That means we have resiliency. We have the ability to withstand change. But we should not rest on our laurels, and we should continue to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. So we should not become so enamored with ourselves. Oh, we're ASPB. This is how we do things. We do things properly. We should not become so hardened in our mindset that we become closed to change. And we have to meet our members where they are. And that will necessarily involve us doing things differently. Another thing that ASPB should not be doing is to try to be all things to all people. Sometimes we have to make hard choices about what we can engage in. We cannot be everything to everybody, but what we can try to do is to be a supportive organization, society rather, that allows its members room to grow and express themselves, provide them a launch pad. But we cannot support every great idea that comes up. We would love to be able to, but there are always going to be constraints. So what we have to do is to make it clear what our mission is. We want to continue to support good science and trained scientists. That's the primary concern of ASPB, and we do that as our central mission. We cannot take on every challenge that arises. And sometimes that can be disappointing. But again, if our members know that we are acting out of their best interest or what we as a society think is the best interest, then I think we can get buy-in to that notion. What should ASPB be doing? ASPB should continue doing what it has been doing, but doing it better. I'll give you, in the recent months where certain words have become almost prohibited in our jargon, ASPB made a bold statement about its commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. That is something that ASPB should keep doing, right? This is not the time to be of faint heart. So ASPB as a non-profit private organization should keep doing this important work, supporting its membership, like Thelma said, low-income countries, the global south. This is where growth is happening. This is where the need is greatest. This is where we can have an impact. We should not shirk from that responsibility. And the other thing that ASPB should be doing is something we spoke about multiple times in this webinar. It's about changing its business model with the changing times. The long-term viability of the society is really important, because the only way we can do all these things we want to do is if we have the financial wherewithal and independence to get all these things done. We talk about the amount of volunteer time that goes in, especially among our young scientists, all the ambassadors and the Plante fellows, you know, maybe let's see how we can make it easier for them to do these additional roles to their primary jobs as scientists.
Very beautifully answered. Just like for a recap, we have to resist change, we have to do better, be more transparent, and we have two power-packed candidates right now, audience, and the audience has greatly appreciated your thoughts. They have mentioned it in our QA as thoughts and suggestions as well. So keeping all the essence in mind, we have just like a last thing that I would ask is what ASPB, one thing, what ASPB needs to do in the next 5 years to become or be at where it is, involving everyone globally. Just one thing that they could do and it could change the scenario for the better in the next 5 years. So Tessa?
Yes, I think it has to do with engagement with non-traditional ASPB members, engagement with folks from developing countries, engagement with people who are not in academic institutions, engagement with farmers, other stakeholders, the guys who run the barges of grain down the Mississippi River. Why not reach out to these folks? Engage them with ASPB. That is one way I think we can grow our membership and grow our impact on the wider society.
Great. Engagement it is. And for you, Thelma?
Tessa, you took my answer. No, yeah, I think that I completely agree with what Tessa just said, right? We need to become a more global society. We need to break any forms of silos, internally, globally, be across disciplines, right? To just create a society of plant scientists without borders. And I mean that in multiple ways, in diverse ways. And so,
Yeah, so we have engagement here and we have be the change for a global scale. Thank you so much, Tessa. Thank you so much, Thelma, for answering the questions of our audience. And I guess we have been able to answer all the point of views that our audience had. We are very happy to have you here. And now I'll head it back to Jason. Thank you very much for everything. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to our president-elect candidates, Tessa and Thelma, and a special thank you to our wonderful moderator, Sona. Also, a big thank you to all of you all that have been very engaged, definitely asked so many important, relevant questions. And so thank you all for your continued and really endless engagement with the society. To all our ASPB members, be sure to cast your vote by June 18th. If you're not already a member, definitely consider joining through our membership website. But with all of that said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. And again, thank you. This webinar is recorded, so if you know any colleagues that were not able to join, definitely share the recording afterwards. And of course, continue your great work, continue your phenomenal advocacy and all the things that you do to make the global plant science community the way it is now. And from here, it's only just going to get better if we band together. So thank you all and have a great rest of your week. Hope we'll see you at our next event. Bye, everyone.